You see a picture here of New York's electric chair, and I'm proud to say that I shut it down. I argued this case when I was a young lawyer. I was 28 years old, and that and a lot of the selective service cases I did at the time. I won a big case in the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals suing the selective service system and changing the law. It really gave me that sense of how we could accomplish so much as lawyers. And I realized I wasn't going to really do that at the law firm. And so after a point I kind of thought, well, I've learned a lot of what I'm going to learn here. It's time for me to move on. And I was looking for something that would be more in the public interest area. And I, interviewed for a number of jobs in New York City and wound up taking a job with the administration of Mayor John Lindsay, who was then the mayor, a very wonderful progressive mayor. I was deputy counsel of the city's health services administration and, did a bunch of things at sort of the somewhat higher levels of city government, which again gave me a wonderful opportunity to do things. I sort of went into it thinking, well, here I am, a critic of government. At some point in my career, I should be within the government to see what that's like. And so, it was sort of what was Che's phrase about living in the belly of the beast. and so there it was, an opportunity for me to do that. And I promised myself going into it that I would do it for no more than 2 or 3 years, that I could be effective as long as I sort of kept my sense of outrage about the way things were, but that after a period of 2 or 3 years, you make personal relationships, you start getting co-opted, you lose your edge, and you lose your effectiveness, you become part of the bureaucracy, and the first principle of the bureaucracy, after all, is self-survival, really, not serving the people. And so I was general counsel of the city's mental health department. I was the city's director of court mental health services. It's what got me involved in mental health law, actually. At that time, mental health law was just beginning to be thought of as an area of law. And there I was sort of working in this very interesting setting on the administrative side, but sort of seeing the issues, dealing with the lawyers that were doing some of the cases at the New York Civil Liberties Union, Bruce Ennis, and I was on his side. And we helped to do a lot of law reform from within the government. Anyway, there came a time when my 2 or 3 years was up, and I went to that year's meat market at the Association of American Law Schools. I decided it was now time for me to try my hand at law school teaching. And Soya Menchikov was just becoming the dean here at Miami. She was a wonderful, very well-regarded law professor at the University of Chicago, the wife of Carl Llewellyn, the famous legal philosopher. And here she was in her later years, deciding she wanted to become a dean and change a school, and Miami became the school. And she was doing recruiting for the law school in that year before she became the dean, and recruited me to come from New York City, and here I am, and have remained ever since. It's been a wonderful, nurturing environment for me, and the law school is, I think, a wonderful one, and it's grown and expanded and become a much more scholarly place in the years since Soya than it was beforehand. So that's what really brought me to Miami. Now, having been brought here as a law professor, I continued to have this interest in law as an agent of social change. I did a lot of pro bono cases while I was here. I was, among other things, general counsel of the Florida ACLU. I did a whole series of cases on behalf of the Haitian refugees here in Miami when the Reagan administration and subsequent administrations was acting in quite unlawful ways towards the Haitians. We went up to the Supreme Court several times. We won most of the cases. We made some very good law. A small group of lawyers here in Miami, in effect, stood up to the government and said, you cannot do that. You must follow the law. And it was a David and Goliath story, maybe. So anyway, the gay rights ordinance in Miami in 1977 was one that I actually wrote. I was general counsel of the ACLU of Florida at the time, and testified in favor of at the county commission, and when it was challenged in court, I defended it successfully. Of course, later on there was a referendum that Anita Bryant spearheaded, and it was repealed, sadly. But looking back at that, that was one of the most important episodes in the gay rights movement, the Miami Ordinance. And it galvanized the community, the gay community, to realize it couldn't remain in the closet. It had to come out and participate in the political process. It had to fight for what it wanted. We've all seen the recent movie about RV Milk, and we get that message big time. So I found myself luckily being in the middle of that controversy. A year or two later, I actually represented a bar applicant, an applicant to the bar of Florida, who was denied admission because he admitted he was gay. Unbelievable. But this was 30 years ago. And what happened is the Florida bar, he was a California lawyer, he was applying for admission here, he passed the exam. Someone had written to the bar that I think was an enemy or something and said he was gay, and the bar commission, the character committee, called him in and they asked him one question: Mr. Eimers, are you of homosexual orientation? And he said yes. That was it. And on the basis of that, they denied his bar admission. And I took his case and won it in the Florida Supreme Court, and it was the first case on that point nationally. That being gay, being of homosexual orientation in itself, is not inconsistent with the good moral character requirements for bar admission. So anyway, those cases and a whole lot of others that I kind of did on a pro bono basis over the years here since I've been a professor kind of continue my notion of lawyering in the public interest, lawyer as instrument of social change, and I've tried to sort of model that behavior for my students, because I think that so much of what we teach isn't what we tell them, it's what we show them. And so I'm very conscious of the fact that the kind of lawyer I am and show myself to be in the classroom, without beating them over the head, teaches them an important lesson about what lawyering is all about. And so the implicit message is, yes, you need to participate in your community. You need to take up good causes, whatever they might be for you. Money isn't everything. It's about doing good works. It's about serving your client. It's about participating in the political process.